go, baby!
Hello, all you rockers and rockettes and everything in between. You have entered the domain of And the Podcast Will Rock. We are the show that dives into the catalog, the discography of one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, Van Halen. I am one of your hosts, Mark Kameyer, 1 year older, 1 year wiser. That's up for some debate, but that's cool. But joining me, as always, is Corey Morissette. Corey, how's the weather?
It's great. It's really great. You know, no coach needed this week, and it's been a rough week, Mark. I got to tell you, a lot of work stuff, a lot of family stuff. I've just been baby stepping my way to Wednesday night where I could sit here with you in my Weiser Special Blend and my Coke Zero and just rock out to some Van Halen and have some fun. So I need tonight. I've been really, really looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, happy to oblige. I did not get so fancy with my beverages. I went with the classic genuine draft.
Oh, very nice.
And it's a little bit too foamy for my taste, but whatever. It is what it is. That right there is what was left behind from a cavalcade of different assorted beverages and treats from the birthday party that I just hosted with my lady. It went off like gangbusters, and I appreciate all involved, and I appreciate everyone that gave some birthday wishes. You made a guy feel real special, so thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that you had a good party, and you're not too worse for wear this week because it's kind of a big show tonight.
It is a big show tonight. We are, this is one of the annual shows that we do every month where we are not alone. We have a guest with us. We have a special guest here on the panel for the Van Halen podcast, Will Rock. I don't know. We're gonna think of a quippier name for our panel, but you get what I'm saying. Point is, we have a guest. Corey, please, will you do the honors of introducing our guest?
Well, you know what? A while back, we kind of reached out to everybody on who listens to the show and said, hey, you know, if you ever feel the need and you'd like to come on the show, by all means, reach out. And our guest tonight was the very first one to do so. And he goes by the name of David Brown. David, how's it going tonight?
Hey.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, pleasure to be here. It's great. I'm not anybody very well known or important, but I sure do love the show. And I'm a giant, huge Van Halen fan. So I'm just ready to rock and roll with you guys.
And, you know, we're not important either. A lot of listeners will affirm that for us. But I really loved your initial email. Huge Van Halen fan. EVH is your favorite guitarist, and you're a guitar player yourself, are you?
Yeah. I'm no EVH, but you know, I love him. I try to do some tapping here and there, but I can't do anything he does. But who can?
Exactly.
Very few can. It takes quite the virtuoso to replicate the sort of things our dearly beloved Edward Van Halen could do. But hey, look, you might not think that you're someone special, but we think you're someone special because you're a fan of you're a fan of the show. You are very supportive, and so here you are as a panelist, and we are happy to have you. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being here.
All right.
Now, Mark, it's special for another reason too, this show.
Is it?
Yeah. On this date in Van Halen history, we've been hitting some milestones as we've been recording lately, but it was 7 years ago as we record this on March 30th, 2015, where Van Halen with David Lee Roth they performed their first ever TV concert with David Lee Roth on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. And fans are going to remember this show because this is the show where David Lee Roth started doing his mic stand pyrotechnics at the beginning of Panama and cut the bridge of his nose quite badly too. And I actually got, and this isn't going to help the audio listeners much, but if you can load up the clip on YouTube, I have it here for the folks on the panel here tonight. If you guys want to watch a little bit of it, this is some fan cam footage of David Lee Roth cutting his nose on the Jimmy Kimmel Show on his mic stand. So if you guys are ready, you want to check this out?
Oh, yeah. Gotta.
All right.
Well, we are here in Hollywood. It has been a long road.
So the band looks great right off the hop there. Right?
It's called Tokyo Dome.
Dave is resplendent in his Canadian tuxedo with the denim jacket and the denim pants.
Together for the first time, Van Halen.
And no shirt first time. Right, so they're kicking into Panama. Here he goes. Still incredibly impressive. He's right about there. Caught himself right on the nose. He's reaching for his nose right away. But ever the professional. Like, it takes him a while before he actually stops. What the hell happened?
Like,
he's over at Dave, he's got the towel.
Like, oh shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, give us 1 second here. We're filming on tape, and I just cut my nose here on the microphone or whatever. Let me get this taped up, and we'll start again. I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. I apologize.
7 years ago tonight that happened. And to Dave's full credit, he came back out. And they actually gave the folks a bigger show than they had planned on Little Panama. One of them was the Devil Hot for Teacher, Interruption, Really Got Me Down, Dance kind of. They did a ton of songs. Yeah, it was 7 years ago tonight that Dave cut his nose.
Well, at least he wasn't being like a drama queen about it, and he wasn't doing anything that was just escalating the situation. He just simply said, like, hey, here's what it is. Sorry, I cut myself. Give me a second. I'll be right back. He didn't just be like, I cut myself. We're not doing this. I'm done. I'm out of here. He didn't pull an Axl Rose. Apologies to the GNR fans. It's fine. But that's funny, though. It honestly, if you weren't like really looking for it, you'd miss it. You'd absolutely miss when it happens. And I honestly, maybe it's just because of the camera footage. But I didn't notice anything was awry really until that close up where the blood is on his chest, his bare chest, mind you. As Corey said, the man's wearing a tuxedo or a Canadian tuxedo, denim on denim, but there's no shirt underneath because he's a rock star. You don't wear shirts. And, and so thus he made himself his own bloody shirt from the blood from his nose. But hey, ever the professional, as you say, went back out there, got all taped up. That'd be the funniest part, is like, enjoy this first TV show performance that we're doing. And my nose is taped up because I hit myself with the microphone. Yeah.
At least he wasn't swinging a sword like he was in the music video, right?
Yeah. It could have been a lot worse. Good point. Yeah. Cut an ear right off or something.
Yeah. I wonder maybe if, in Van Halen lore, maybe he wanted to, as a special sort of like surprise, like, I'm busting the sword out, and someone said, hey, maybe don't bust out the sword. You can do anything else, but put that sword away. He's like, oh, okay, fine. Well, it won't be as cool. Nothing bad will happen to me now, without my sword. Did it? Yeah.
Well, I remember watching that on Kimmel that night. So, Van Halen's going to be on. This is going to be great. And you're watching Dave perform, and like the band sounds great, and you're looking forward to the performance. You see that big Band-Aid on his nose through the whole performance. Like, what the fuck is that? Like,
I had forgotten that this happened. So that was really cool that it happened to fall upon this day, and that we had that footage. That's really cool.
So does that mean we're going to get a classic Dave cut tonight, Mark? Knowing how the wheel has been lately, it's been very Dave heavy. It's
clear that the wheel is biased, I think, that, or at least the wheel really wants to hear certain songs, certain singers, shall we say. But every once in a while it throws us a bone, and then every once in a while it just completely derails us. Apologies, Gary Sharon. Anyway, but I have to speculate now. I don't think we're getting a Dave tune. I think because we watched that, and because we got a classic Dave tune last week, We are not getting Dave, but I don't think we're getting Sammy either. I think the wheel is going to go ahead and say, "Happy birthday, Mark. Here's 2 fingers. Call me in the morning." I'm holding up 2 middle fingers, and he's going to give us a Gary Cherone tune.
Well,
that's what I think.
We got David here tonight, and maybe David's going to conjure up something nice on the wheel. If you had your choice, my friend here, what would you want to hear tonight from Van Halen?
Well, I'm a fan of, there's only 2 eras. The Gary Cherone era is just a weird in-between thing that doesn't really, it's just an album. It's not anything. But so I'm not really biased on either end, but I think I'd like to hear something off For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I know that you guys are kind of torn between some of the tracks, but it's just a kick-ass album to me. It has a couple duds, but if I heard something off that, it'd be great. But I'm ready for anything. So.
Oh, we've been calling for Unlawful for quite a while now. I've been dying to hear one of those tracks, and some of my favorite Van Halen stuff is from that album. So I'm right there with you. I'd love to hear something from For Unlawful. Mark, do you want to venture? Like you kind of ventured a guess. Is there anything you'd like to hear?
I'm with you. I really want to hear some from Unlawful, but I just don't think the wheel is going to be kind to us on that.
Be positive.
Great.
Be positive.
I would love to. Hey, look, I want to be wrong. See, this is the strategy, Corey. If I keep saying the wheel is not going to be nice, it will.
We might get spanked.
We're just gonna get. The wheel's just gonna. It's gonna come after us with a vengeance. So it's anybody's guess. It would be nice though.
Well, if you guys are ready, I'm going to give it a few little shuffles here, just to make sure we're good and mixed up.
This is what we do. You're getting an inside look at what we do here, Dave.
Yeah,
it's a real will, guys. It's a real will.
Thank you for confirming. It's a real will. Even though we tweet it out, we show you that the wheel exists. People still are like, it's not a real wheel. This is bogus.
Currently still 101 songs on it. We don't have the instrumentals on there. We're going to go to cross that bridge when we come to them. But we got a couple of tracks that were only released in Japan on there now. So we're still over 100 at 101 currently. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And we'll turn things over to Mr. Hagar.
Here we go.
All right. Oh.
What's he going to do?
Well, we're getting... It's our first cut from OU 812. I was wondering when we're going to get an OU 812 song.
We were so close to a 5150 track.
You know what? We had 5150 on either side. We had Dreams on the bottom and Get Up on the top. So
that would man. But no, we're going straight to I'm sorry, I just lost the track. Where'd it go?
A.F.U. Naturally Wired.
There it is.
From OU 812. All right, David, any recollections on this song?
If I remember correctly, this song is a complete shredder, hence the name. And I think it's going to be great. I don't remember that it's one of the greater songs on the album, which, I mean, OU 812 is filled with great songs. So that's really, that's pretty hard to beat. But, I'd like to have my memory refreshed because I can't quite remember. But if I can recall anything, the main riff is really busy and it's awesome. So, I'm ready when you guys are.
Awesome. It's been a long time since I've heard this one, Mark. I know OU 812 is a favorite of yours. Does this track stand out to you?
It doesn't stand out, no, but I have heard it. I am aware of it. I think Dave's right that it does. It is kind of a shredder, but even so, it doesn't stand out as one of the kind of big player tracks from this album. But that's because look what it's competing against. When It's Love, and Cabo Wabo and Black and Blue and things of that nature. But I mean, it's. But if I remember, I do recall it being a decent track. I just don't have. It doesn't really stand out in my mind too much. What about you, Corey?
Kind of the same. Like it's been a long time since I've heard OU 812. That's not really my go-to Sammy album, but like you mentioned, a lot of classic stuff on here. But I do remember liking this one quite a bit. track number 3 on side 1. For all you vinyl lovers, it came right after When It's Love. So I remember it being kind of a nice ramp up from kind of the power ballad of When It's Love. So what do you say, guys? Should we jump right into A.F.U. Naturally Wired?
We're going into Sammy territory. You know I love it.
Here we go. Just a quick, I love Alex's snare sound, and I love his drumming, and the drums sound great on this album. And you can't say that about a lot of albums from like 1988 era, but you know, they really did a great job. I thought with the drum sound on this record and on this track, especially on the intro here.
It's a really smooth mix so far. I dig that.
Yep. Listed producers are Van Halen and Don Landy, who was, of course, the engineer,
of course,
in the Ted Templeman years. And of course, he worked on 5150 as well. So you guys are good. We'll keep on rolling here.
It's interesting because this is the track that follows When It's Love. When It's Love being, I would argue, their biggest ballad. Maybe not the biggest, but it's one of their like big hits, one of their, you know, most recognizable rock ballads that they ever did. And this is a complete juxtaposition of what that song is. And I gotta feel like it's by design, because it's like the band saying, yeah, we're capable of this. We got Sammy loves a love song. We know this, but now it's time to rock. Like, let me just get in here. And that's kind of what Eddie is doing with that whole opening riff. You know, he's just like, oh yeah, we got the slow stuff out of the way. Now it's time to just kind of rage a little bit, or maybe not rage, but definitely is like, let's cook. Okay. Let's cook it up a little bit. And even Sammy, when he comes in with his high pitched kind of howling, he's reminding you that it's still Sammy Hagar, you know? So I really dig the juxtaposition there with this track already, when it follows what is possibly one of their biggest songs. That's a love ballad.
They were going to initially name this album Rock and Roll, according to Eddie Van Halen. And, you know, you can see why. Not that anything else they did wasn't rock and roll, but I mean, I guess they thought this album was going to be their straightforward rocker, and who knows, maybe they had some ballads just kind of peppered in there or whatever. But, you know, this is living proof that they can just be balls out rockers whenever they want to.
Yeah, this one and Source of Infection, I remember being kind of in the same vein. Even, you know, trying to like finish what you started, kind of, you know, veered off the beaten path a little bit. And of course, When It's Love, and they did their only cover on this album, Apolitical Blues, which was only on the CD version, not on the vinyl version. But yeah, you know, maybe trying to capture a little bit of the David Lee Roth sound with this musically, perhaps.
I could hear that a little bit. And that's not to say When It's Love doesn't rock, because it does. It's a rock ballad for sure. But this is obviously a very different shift. You might be right. You might be onto something there with Corey. I again can't say for sure because I'm not an expert.
Well, look at the album title.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
OU 812.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Smile, you know. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's a direct jab.
Yeah. I love it. All right, let's keep it rocking.
Is what I need when my axe cuts me face, down my face, and all over me. Yeah, pumping up for the show, feeling like something's gonna blow. It's got me all fired up. Yes, I'm all fired up.
All right.
I gotta give it to Sammy for I see the note he was trying to go for. It wasn't quite there. But this is the day and age before auto-tune, ladies and gents. And even if auto-tune was kind of on the precipice, they didn't use it. So what you're hearing is just raw vocals. You know, I don't know how many times in the studio Sammy had to do this particular take, but I mean, hats off to him for going saying, you know what? Close enough. That's good. That's the one we're keeping. I'm not doing that again. Because in my brain, I like to think Sammy just did that one in one take, and then maybe the producer said, "Hey, that's good. You think you got one more in you just to really jump on that note?" Nope. Okay, cool. Let's move on. But yeah, hats off to you, Sammy, for that one, because that's still a ridiculously high note, and even though it wasn't quite there, at least the note I think he was trying to go for still works.
Now, I got two guitar players on the panel here tonight. Let's start with David. Your thoughts on what Eddie's pumping out here?
Well, you know, this is what I remember of the main riff is that he's just tearing it up. One thing that Eddie Van Halen doesn't get, you don't really ever hear a lot of guitar players talk about with him, but I always thought was very impressive. His use of arpeggios and his choice of notes when he rings out with things like that, they're really creative and they're always incredibly melodic. And, you know, I mean, he's obviously a master of many things, but there's something about the arpeggiations that he does with certain things that it fills in the gaps perfectly with the band. And that's something that it's maybe overshadowed. He's obviously a killer lead player, a great rhythm guy. He has to be. He's the only one playing guitar, but that's just something that kind of falls by the wayside.
Well, that's interesting. And I wanted to ask this about Eddie, because I'm reading Greg Renoff's book, Van Halen Rising. And I'm at the point in the book now where they're cutting the demo with Gene Simmons, and Gene was trying to get him to overdub a lot. And Eddie just couldn't get it, wasn't a fan of it, and never really did it kind of past that. Does that kind of factor into that, to what you were just saying there, Dave?
Possibly. I brought this like stack of my books here. I've got this book that is fucking awesome. You can still find it for really cheap. It's a Van Halen. It's a bunch of Guitar World interviews of Eddie Van Halen, which of course there's a million of them, and it's just all of them compiled in a chronological order. And he constantly talks about, especially on the first two albums, they would just track everything live in the studio. And if it needed a guitar part under the solo, he would go in and try to play something under there that maybe fit if it was like, you know, something that needed like a little extra melody. But for the most part, he liked to just keep it live because he didn't write, you know, a rhythm part underneath, you know. He would just, that's what it sounded like live. So that's what you were going to get listening to it. So I'm not sure if that was something that was an issue with him, or, you know, maybe him and Alex were just so used to jamming it out for hours on end that was how it always ended up. Like, okay, well, here's the lead spot. You do your thing. I'm going to do mine. We'll meet back in the middle at some point. He called it falling down the stairs and landing on your feet. That's what he references that, which, you know, that's a pretty good little metaphor for his playing sometimes.
Mark, I know you got lots to say about the guitar, but I wanted to throw this out here too. Not hearing a lot of bass in the mix.
No, that's a very good observation, because yeah, that's the bass is not standing out whatsoever. Not really. I mean, some people might even say, oh, good, it's not supposed to. And like, well, but I would disagree with a band like this, especially, you know, considering who's on bass. But that raises another question. Corey, who's on bass? That's become like a new sort of a fun segment of the show, as it turns out, because oftentimes we think we know who's on bass, the obvious answer, and then turns out, nope, it was him, or it was this guy, or whatever. But yeah, I don't know who's on bass on this one, but I have to imagine it's it's probably not Eddie, because if it were Eddie, I feel like it would stand out a lot harder. It
would be a lot more prominent. And I'm pretty sure this is Michael Anthony on the whole album. And I think the theory is, and again, I'm speculating, which people hate, but I think the theory is that this is kind of when the Van Halen brothers were getting a lot more disenfranchised with Michael Anthony. And maybe this is kind of a sign of the animosity maybe between the brothers and Michael Anthony, that they kind of brought him down in the mix a little bit. But I don't have any proof of that.
Certainly kind of seems like that there's some merit to that theory. We just from listening to this alone, again, like you, I have no proof in the matter. I have nothing to stand by that statement. We can only speculate and theorize.
David knows. I bet you David knows.
Yeah. Dave, yeah. What does it say in your books, David?
Well, in this book, he always, when he's in a good mood about Michael, like maybe it's an era where the band's not squabbling, he says that he just teaches him the important parts and lets him do his thing otherwise. But then there's parts in the book where he'll reference the same album and he'll say, well, I have to show him everything. Yeah. So it's a revisionist history at that point. Yeah, I think if Eddie were playing on it, he'd be matching himself note for note. It seems like these kind of busier riffs, that's what he tends to do, because he can and he will. But we'll just have to assume it's Michael. He's credited. Yeah. He's awesome. I mean, he's obviously singing.
Oh, so, yeah.
Yeah, you can't mistake that.
He's putting his best foot forward regardless.
Yeah. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Through the ice, to the fire, blowing steam, north and south, east and west, right and left, always extreme. Don't like the middle squeezing me. I don't like nothing in between. Yes, I know. Got me all fired up. When the rest are packed it up, I'm alive. I'm electric. Inspired.
Love that snare sound.
Maybe I was tuning into it a little too hard, but that time it felt like the bass was a little more prominent. Maybe it was just because Michael's doing he decided to venture out in this verse.
I don't know, I was still struggling to hear it. I was trying for it, but
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it was just because, like I said, I was just really like tuning in to listen to hear it. I was like, oh, there it is. Cool. Got it. Oh, that's what he's doing. All right, whatever. But I do also, I speculate that going from the what you said about Eddie not doing the overdubbing, I don't think he overdubs here whatsoever. I think if anything, it's him and Alex playing live.
Oh, to be sure.
That's what it sounds like. Because the guitar sound, and this is not a jab at Eddie's tone or his playability whatsoever. Obviously, why would I do that? But it's not as full as it would be if there was another dub on top of it. I mean, that's why you do that. That's why you do the double tracking to give it a fuller sound, a wall of sound, if you will. His guitar doesn't have a wall of sound, so to speak. It's just, this is what he's doing. We're tuning, we're turning up all the levels on Eddie as he's playing all the stuff, but it does not feel like he did any overdubbing or any doubling whatsoever. It's just, nope, this is it. The only doubling you'll probably hear is when the solo comes in and if there's some rhythm guitar underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Which even then, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, at this point in their career, I don't think he did a ton of.
Well, it seems like on 5150 and OU 812, and maybe even a little bit of 1984, that's when he started venturing into doing doing more overdubs. And he talks about it in this book of interviews. It became something where it was a little more necessary. And he started doing it as a songwriter and not as like just a studio nerd, which, you know, I'm sure he had his own studio. I'm sure he was that as well. But but I wonder if, I mean, just like Mark was saying, you can kind of tell it just sounds like they're just, I mean, him and Alex are just playing off of each other in this song, at least. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of studio magic with them, or if it's just them, you know, press and record and, hey, let's just jam out these riffs we wrote and we'll piece them together and make a song, or who knows.
And you can kind of say that with a lot of this album. Like Finish What You Started is another song where it just sounds like they just went in the studio. I think you even hear the count-in on that right before Eddie starts playing. And it's just, kind of cut it in one take type of thing. So that maybe is kind of, you know, When It's Love obviously is a little more polished and put together in the studio. But, you know, there's a few songs on here that are just like, let's just go in there and rip it like we used to in the backyard days. And it's working.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to say, when Eddie started launching into that, both guitar players on the panel just started smiling to beat hell and nodding their head like, yep, here we go. Yeah. This fucking kills.
That was like, it was both. It was Sammy utilizing his very, very much 80s metal singer, sort of like high falsetto, like howling. I mean, like he's just going straight for it, channeling his best Rob Halford or Bruce Dickinson or something like that. It works. See, that works. Those notes were on it. He was on it that time. So good job, Sammy. But yeah, the solo. I mean, it's a Van Halen solo, but it's like, it's also, it rips. I don't have a lot to say about it, really.
I mean, that's like the sampler's platter of Eddie Van Halen shred techniques. You know, you could play that for somebody. This is what this guy is capable of. Did I hear him and Sammy matching each other note for note at the beginning of that solo when he was doing those falsettos? So I could hear the bass in that also. Finally, because you know, there's not all this guitar. And Mike's doing some pretty cool stuff there. I mean, nothing nearly as cool as Eddie, obviously, who's just tearing it up, but what he's playing underneath it was great. So, you know, we got to give him a little bit of credit there.
Oh, totally. And we mentioned on the show quite a bit, we're big fans of Mike Anthony and his bass playing, and he's currently flying the flag of Van Halen because nobody else really is, right? Him and Sammy, Mike's actually taken to doing some of these songs live. He does Running with the Devil and a couple others with Sammy Hagar and the Circles. So, we're not going to be trashing Michael Anthony too hard on this podcast.
No,
we're pretty big fans.
You guys never do. You know, there's one thing that I can say about Eddie Van Halen is he's kind of a fluke when it comes to guitar players. You know, like I don't mean it in a bad way, obviously, but he was sort of destined to just be Van Halen and be the guitar player besides the name. But like when you hear him like the solo and Beat It, that's pieced together, you know, and any of the stuff that he guested on, which wasn't really a whole lot, you would think any other guitar player of his ilk would be all over the place. He's kind of this flash in the pan, once in a lifetime person that can only play this style, which I mean is amazing. And any guitar player, I think that's why there's so many guitar players that wanted to sound like him, but they weren't they didn't have whatever crazy thing was going on in his brain that made him just naturally be able to play like this. He's just this once in a lifetime person. And I mean, he's just incredible.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think of a guy like George Lynch, who, after hearing Eddie Van Halen, just worked and worked and worked. He realized, like, I can never get to that level, but he tried his ass off. He's one of the greatest guitar players of that era, I would say. Like, George Lynch is fantastic, but he can never quite get to that level. He always wanted to be Eddie Van Halen and just couldn't quite reach it.
Well, Eddie Van Halen probably couldn't tell you what the Phrygian scale was, or like, or any of that. He probably could play it, I'm sure, but he's just this guy that just knew the notes that sounded great and could just fucking play,
To be fair, there are a lot of really skilled musicians out there that would completely look at you blankly if you started mentioning, the Mixolydians and the Phrygian scales. And I mean, yeah, like, and I dealt with those scales in school, but man, if you told me to point them out to you right now, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. I'm not doing that anymore. That was music theory was my Vietnam. So I'm not going back there.
I'm just a rock and roll guy.
Yeah. But I guess my whole thing is Eddie found his formula. He found his formula early on, I think, and just sort of expanded it and broadened it, but it's still very much his sound. That's why nobody else can replicate it. Like not even Wolfie can replicate it. I don't think he wants to, and good for him. But I mean, like when a certain musician finds their particular formula of the sound that they want to have, it's hard to go outside of it. It's hard to just sort of just say, okay, cool, I have this. Now let me go venture over here and do this other thing. And, because then people won't know it's you. And so maybe there's an ego thing with it. I have to imagine if you're a guitar aficionado and virtuoso like Eddie Van Halen, there's a lot of ego that comes with it.
Yeah.
The more and more we hear stories about, the brothers and their sort of, whatever you call it, with former members and current members, what have you, it seems like ego kind of got in the way a lot. It's fine because it's musicians. What are you going to do? It happens, especially when you're a top tier rock band. And if you are Eddie Van Halen, how are you not supposed to have an ego? But I'm just saying, but again, that's speculation. But I have to imagine that with him discovering his formula, finding it, sticking with it, you're not going to find him do that on a lot of other like guest tracks. You pointed out, Dave, that he didn't do a lot of guest spots, like probably because they didn't want it to sound too much like Van Halen, but he's like, well, this is what I sound like, so deal with it. Or maybe it was his thing. It's like, well, I do this, you want me to do that. That's not what I do. I don't know. But it just feels like, you find your niche, you stick with it.
Is that why, like, I don't know much about guitar, but is that why a guy like Slash fits in maybe a little bit more doing guest spots and stuff like that than a guy like Eddie Van Halen?
It's not to say that Eddie himself wasn't dynamic. Obviously he has a shitload of dynamics in his guitar playing, but I would say in this instance, yes, probably, Corey, because Slash, you know a Guns N' Roses song when you hear it, but if you got an equally good guitar player to play what Slash is doing, do you really notice that it's not Slash?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not speaking ill of Slash's ability to play. I'm just saying Slash never exactly found his particular brand of sound. He had like the Guns N' Roses as a whole had their sound, and they found it, and that was cool. But I mean, Slash didn't have a particular tone that was identifiable. Eddie Van Halen's tone, Queen's tone, based on I'm blanking on his name. Thank you, Brian May's. Yeah, and his tone was very specific because I think he built his own pickups. But anyway. But I mean, there are certain players, they just have that. So yeah, to answer your question, I think so. Yes.
The thing about there's something about Eddie Van Halen that's like Slash is a kind of sloppy player. I mean, and he's fantastic. But there's a kind of sloppiness to him, but it's a little different. It's Eddie Van Halen it's not sloppy. It's almost just like I could do this in my sleep. Like it's
unconscious.
It's a little,
yeah.
It's like he could be cooking dinner and playing this shit on the guitar at the exact same time. You never saw him like biting his lip, bending the notes or anything. He was smiling, laughing, and jumping the whole time. Like it was just like, oh, cool. I get to play guitar for an hour in front of these people. Great. Yeah. Here, check out this shit I can do.
It's like muscle memory in his fingers, even though like it's like once he creates it, there it is. He has it. So it's always going to be there. I get what you're saying.
Awesome. Well, we got 55 seconds left in the track. Let's get back to it. All right, that's A.F.U. Naturally Wired from OU 812, released May 24th, 1988 by the mighty Van Halen. You know what? Why don't we give David the first vote here tonight? David, of course, if you've listened to the show before, we give her That's What Dreams Are Made Of or This Dream Is Over. So when you are ready, cast your vote.
Well, it's probably no secret, but everybody fire on this. I know we can barely hear the bass, but when you can, it's killer. And we didn't talk much about Sammy. There's not much to say about him that hasn't been said, but his vocals, soaring vocals. I mean, even at the end, he's riding the song out, and it's just, he sounds like he's on top of a mountain or something. I mean, it's incredible.
It really is. And I'm glad you brought up Sammy, because we didn't talk much about him, and he sounds fantastic on this track. And he always sounds fantastic. He still sounds fantastic, but lyrically, I was impressed too. I really like kind of the story he was telling with this song, and everything sounded cool. He sounded great. But I got to say that this is probably my least favorite Sammy album. So I got to give this song a... If you're a Van Halen fan, you can't downvote this song. And I know there was some, we did Panama last week, and I think one or two people actually downvoted Panama. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How damaged are you as a human being?
We knew it was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen.
But this is another one. How can you downvote this? It sounds amazing. Yeah, I'd like a little more bass because I'm a Michael Anthony fan, but the drums sound amazing. Eddie's on fire. Sammy's on fire. Lyrics are great. Of course, this is absolutely what dreams are made of. And Mark, I can just venture a guess what you're going to say here.
We didn't talk a lot about Sammy because usually if a guy is just on point the whole time, it needs not be said. You don't have to venture out into that. Just like I didn't talk much about Alex because Alex was solid throughout this whole thing. He even got a few little fills in there, like real quick. Mm-hmm. Also, the way this song ended, I firmly believe that my original theory that Eddie and Alex were playing this, live, just if no one else, just them two in the studio. So just based on how that ending went. But look, Sammy Hagar, I don't want to. How can you listen to this song of all the Sammy, I mean, Sammy has so many tunes with Van Halen, but how can you listen to this and not just think this dude is so damn good? Okay. Like even the note he didn't quite hit, he still hit a very, very high note, and it's impressive. The way this song ends with him and his upper register really high, that's not easy to do. Dave rarely did that. Okay. And I know their vocal styles are very different. I get it, but I mean, everyone's always, pro Diamond Dave, and I'm pro Diamond Dave too. But at the same time, like, this is a prime example of why I always concede to the fact that Sammy's the better vocalist, man. He just is. We can have the argument about lyrics all the live long day. That's fine. But even when it's not their strongest song, even when they are following one of their biggest hits with a track like this, Sammy is still completely on point. We already gushed enough about Eddie, of course, because we're going to. But Alex is super impressive in this, just being a solid drummer. I am impressed more and more every time we listen to a track and we actually listen to what he's doing. But come on, Sammy Hagar, you guys. Sammy Hagar. If you're not Team Sammy, I don't know what's wrong with you. Do you just not like 80s singers? I don't know. But yes, absolutely. This is what dreams are made of.
I got to know which side of the argument David goes on here. Are you Team Dave or Team Sammy? Ultimately, everything considered.
Well, ultimately, it's so tough. Who's the better singer? Sammy's the better singer, but Dave seems like the cooler dude. It's like Sammy's the guy you're going to go to his. You're invited to a barbecue, tons of beer, all kinds of great stuff. You go to Sammy's house, but you turn the TV on and Dave's on the TV. Those are the two different kinds of guys.
Good call. I love that.
That's a really awesome. Good. Yeah. I you know what? I'll give you that one. Good. Kudos to that one. That's a really good analogy.
So I guess Team Dave, I have to give an answer, Team Dave, but both of them are great. I can't take anything away from those guys.
See, I'm right with Diamond Dave. The second here on our Zoom call, I kind of lean towards Dave, all things considered, but yeah, Sammy's the better vocalist. Everybody knows that. But when Dave's in his wheelhouse, he's pretty unbeatable. He's the better front man, that's for sure. But everybody knows, Mark, that you're a Dave hater. You've been accused quite a few times
right.
on our Twitter feed and in private messages. The comment's been made, Mark's talking out of his ass. He just hates Dave. And I don't think that's the case. You prefer Sammy, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to choose a side, which again, that's
choose.
A whole
you must
conversation.
choose.
Like, if I choose, like if I'm going for technique and style, then yeah, I'm gonna go like for Sammy every time. But look, to those of you that think that I'm just a David Lee Roth hater, have you not been paying attention to any of the shows that, like, when we have a Dave tune, especially like a really good Dave tune? We just did Panama last week. I defy you to find out a spot in that show where I am hating on Dave. Go ahead, go find it. It just seems like I'm always gonna run into the discourse between
you can't win.
Sammy team. No, I can't win. Team Sammy or Team Dave, and this is like, can I just have both? Like, no, you must choose. And like, all right, fine. If you're forcing me to choose, I will refuse to choose. But that's the beauty of this show, you guys.
I got to interject here because you have won on one thing, and if you remember a couple of shows ago, we did a song from Balance, and you were kind of speculating on the Balance album cover. And I wanted to read this to you because this came from Eric Senich, who writes for the Van Halen News Desk, who did a lovely piece on us not that long ago. And he listened to the show and he said that your analysis of the Balance album cover, as far as it represents the trying to get away but still connected mindset of the band members, was pretty much spot on.
Yes.
He actually quoted Alex Van Halen pretty much saying the exact same thing you did. So for all the people that hate that we speculate, Mark, you fucking nailed that one. And Eric from the Van Halen News Desk said, man, Mark just hit that nail right on the head. So good job, buddy.
Does this mean that I am an official expert?
I hope so, because then
Am I now? Can
now when you get something
can we
wrong,
now
and they
shut
bitch
everybody
at
up?
us-
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
no,
It's
it
like,
won't shut anybody up.
it won't, but I'd be like, look, I don't care what you say. I am clearly an expert. Eric said so because I
Yeah,
was
Eric-
right. That
Eric
one
from Van
time.
Halen's news desk thinks you're an expert. So I just wanted to share that because he said, by all means, let Mark know on the show that he got that one right and
Well-
knocked it out of the park. So good job, buddy.
Well, thank you. I mean, look, I just try to interpret the best I can, and I thank you, Eric, for following up with that and for giving me the win there. That one, I love to get the W, boys. But the thing is about this show, you guys, we're all winners because we're all celebrating the catalog and the songs and the albums of Van Halen. Everybody's a winner because Van Halen are winners. That's why we do the show. We love it because we love the music. We love the bands, all the band members. It's fine. Doesn't matter which singer you prefer. We all love
Even
it.
Gary?
Even Gary?
We can have that conversation. Well, I do love Extreme, and that's what I'll say.
Oh, Extreme's amazing.
there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a great band. So yeah, no hate there whatsoever. No hate here on the show at all. And but look, if you do have some things you need to say, you need to just like correct me on. Believe me, I love being corrected on anything whatsoever. You can hit me up on Twitter at Mark the Bat or on Instagram at Mark the Bat. Go ahead, tweet at me, tweet at us, and let me know your thoughts on that. But definitely, you all need to understand that because Eric said that I was right, I am going to milk that for all it's worth. But hey, it's not just me. Corey, where can the good people find you if they want to shout at you about how wrong I am?
And they do weekly, it seems like. But you can find me
No.
at CD Morset on Twitter and Instagram. Of course, the show Twitter is at Podcast Will Rock. By all means, reach out, vote on the poll. I'm just looking at last week's poll for Panama. What dreams are made of, or is this dream over? 54 votes, only 90% what dreams are made of. So 9.3% have voted this dream is over on Panama. What the fuck is wrong with people?
Contrarians, I swear to God, man. Twitter's nothing but contrarians. Jeez.
There's a margin of error somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh, there's got to be. But I want to shout out some fans that love like tweeting on the polls, like Brian Paterkin from Ottawa. Good buddy of mine. He loves Canadian football like myself. He always tweets on the polls. Tom Armbruster is another one. Michael Green, of course, been following along with us. He talks about the polls. And the cult of Mariano is growing, Mark, is what that means.
Oh, no.
Because now it's like 10% downvotes on Panama. That's the cult of Mariano. He's going to infect the show before too long. But if for some reason you want to follow me and John Mariano, we're doing an Aerosmith show as well, called Backtracks, Aerosmith Revisited. We just dropped episode 4. Which is the track No More, No More from Toys in the Attic. So that dropped today, actually, as we record this. So if you're so inclined and you like Aerosmith, check out that show as well. But I got to say, Mark, this has been the first show where we've had kind of a fan of the band Van Halen who kind of reached out to us blindly through our website. And I got to say, David did a fantastic job. Like I'm ready to replace myself with him.
Man.
I think he should co-host the show with you, and I'll just push the
I'm only a
buttons 'cause
fan.
He did a fantastic job. David, where can the folks find you? And again, thank you so much for coming on the show and just knocking it out of the park.
Well, I play in a rock band here in my town of Athens, Georgia, called Noise Mountain. You can find that, I don't know, Google it. It'll pop up somewhere, Bandcamp or Facebook or something. I'm sure we have something up there. And I play in another rock band called Wild Staleys. Kind of like Wild Stallions, but anyway, not spelled very easily. So good luck Googling that. And otherwise, you'll just have to find me somewhere. So anyways, or find me on this podcast when you listen to this episode, which you already did if you are hearing me say this.
Well, we would love to have you back because, and I'm speaking for Mark here, but I was just so happy that you reached out through the website and let us know that you enjoyed the show and that you're happy to come on. And you did a fantastic job, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us here this week.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was great.
You see, we embrace the fans as long as they're cool. But if they're going to be negative or they're going to follow the cult of Mariano, we just can't. We can't endorse that. Corey, you can't leave this show. because if you do, that means you're stuck with Mariano full time, and
no.
even you got to have a respite. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be bad.
But
Good call. I'll stay here.
But I kid. We love Mariano. We love Backtracks. We love Van Halen. That's what the show is all about, you guys. Thank you to Dave once more. Thank you to all the listeners. Do me a favor, subscribe. Why don't you? Keep giving us feedback. We love it. Even the negative stuff. It's fine. But subscribe, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell everybody, because we are just here to spread the good word of Van Halen. That's what we do here at And the Podcast Will Rock, and we will rock you later.